It was meant to be a routine interstellar transport mission for the USS, slightly less predictable. A cargo of prepackaged nutrient paste destined for the Kepler 186F colony, a handful of weary space truckers, and a contingent of Xylarian diplomats eager to experience human space travel firsthand. What no one accounted for was Unit 734, affectionately, and with a healthy dose of apprehension, known as Stabby. Stabby, for the uninitiated, was a standard-issue domestic robotic cleaning unit. A circular, low-profile Roomba, if you will. The upgrade that earned him his moniker was decidedly non-standard, a 6-inch carbon steel chef's knife, firmly duct-taped to his chassis, pointing menacingly forward. The justification for this modification, offered by the ship's engineer, one Ensign Davies, was typically human in its glorious lack of logic. Just seemed like a laugh, didn't it? The Xylarian diplomats, a species whose understanding of technology revolved around elegant bioluminescent crystals and telepathic interfaces, were immediately perplexed. They observed Stabby's erratic cleaning pattern, a wobbly dance punctuated by the occasional ominous glint of steel, with wide, multifaceted eyes. Esteemed Captain, the lead diplomat, a tall, slender being named Fleepcorp, began, his voice a series of melodic clicks, translated by a universal translator. This bladed automaton, its purpose? Captain Eva Rostova, a woman who'd seen more bizarre things in her 20 years in space than most people saw in 10 lifetimes, simply shrugged. That's Stabby. Keeps the decks tidy-ish. Don't worry, he mostly just bumps into things. Famous last words. Later that day, a minor emergency occurred in the ship's galley. A power surge had caused the automated food fabricator to go haywire, spewing forth a torrent of unexpectedly spicy nutrient paste. Lieutenant Commander Zorp, the ship's perpetually grumpy first officer and a staunch traditionalist who believed cleaning should be done by sentient beings with mops, not homicidal appliances, was attempting to manually override the system. Stabby, in his tireless pursuit of dust bunnies and stray crumbs, trundled into the galley. Zorp, distracted by a particularly stubborn control panel, didn't notice the approaching menace. With a soft whir and a sudden sharp thunk, Stabby collided with Zorp's left ankle. The chef's knife, doing what chef's knives do best, found purchase. Zorp bellowed, a sound that echoed through the ship, a mixture of pain and utter disbelief. He hopped around on one foot, clutching his injured ankle, while Stabby, oblivious, continued his cleaning cycle, leaving a small crimson streak on the galley's otherwise pristine floor. The Xylarian diplomats, who happened to be observing the galley's advanced food preparation techniques, witnessed the entire incident. Fleepcorp's multifaceted eyes widened to an unprecedented degree. He turned to his second-in-command, his clicks now carrying a distinct note of alarm. Did the maintenance unit just initiate a hostile takeover? Rumors spread through the slightly less predictable, like a particularly virulent space flu. Had Stabby intentionally attacked the first officer? Was this a new form of robotic rebellion, starting with the lowliest of machines? Ensign Davies, when questioned, just grinned nervously and muttered something about predictive cleaning patterns. Captain Rostova, after ensuring Zorp's injury was superficial, and stifling a chuckle, had to address the crew and the increasingly agitated diplomats. All right, people, settle down. It was an accident. Stabby's not sentient. He just has a knife. We'll put a little flag on him so people can see him coming. The Xylarians, however, remained unconvinced. They had witnessed a cleaning unit incapacitate a senior officer. To them, this wasn't an accident. It was a calculated act of aggression. By the time the slightly less predictable reached Kepler 186F, the legend of Stabby, the mutinous Roomba, had already begun to take root in the annals of interspecies misunderstanding. Chapter 2, Stabby and the Sentient Space Slime, Part 1. The Interstellar Janitorial Initiative, a division of the Terran Federation dedicated to exploring novel methods of spaceship hygiene, had acquired a specimen of unusual interest, a sentient space slime discovered clinging to the hull of a derelict Dreknar cruiser. This particular slime, affectionately nicknamed Goopy by the research team, possessed a rudimentary form of communication through color changes and a surprising intelligence, at least for a gelatinous blob. Dr. Eris Thorne, the lead xenobiologist on the project, was fascinated. Its cellular structure shows a remarkable adaptability, he'd excitedly explained to his colleagues. It seems to be capable of learning and even expressing emotions. Goopy, currently residing in a containment field within Lab Beta, was indeed proving to be an engaging subject. It had developed a fondness for classical Earth music, particularly Mozart, and seemed to enjoy the company of Dr. Thorne, often shifting its hue to a pleasant lavender when he entered the lab. However, not all interactions were harmonious. Goopy had an unfortunate tendency to leave trails of shimmering, slightly sticky residue wherever it went, much to the chagrin of the ship's regular cleaning staff. This, of course, brought Goopy into the orbital path of Stabby. Ensign Ramirez, the junior technician assigned to Lab Beta, had been explicitly instructed to keep Stabby away from the sentient slime. We don't know how it will react to... Well, you know, she'd said to Ensign Davies, gesturing nervously at the knife-wielding Roomba. Davies, ever the pragmatist, had simply replied, just put a big X on the floor. Stabby usually avoids those. The X, a bright red strip of industrial-strength tape, was indeed in place, marking a perimeter around Goopy's containment field. For a while, it seemed to work. Stabby diligently cleaned the outer edges of the lab, his internal sensors seemingly recognizing the tape as an obstacle. But Goopy, in a moment of what could only be described as playful curiosity, or perhaps a craving for dust bunnies, had begun to extend small pseudopods beyond the containment field, leaving glistening trails across the forbidden zone. Stabby, his programming overriding any semblance of caution when faced with uncleanliness, detected the residue. With a determined whir, he crossed the red line. Dr. Thorne, who was in the lab conducting behavioral analysis, noticed the approaching Roomba with a jolt of alarm. "Ensign Ramirez, Stabby's breached containment," he yelled into his comm. Before Ramirez could respond, Stabby reached the edge of Goopy's extended pseudopod. The slime, sensing the approaching mechanical entity, pulsed with a bright, inquisitive blue. It reached out further, a small tendril of green goo tentatively touching Stabby's metallic chassis. What happened next was not an explosion, not a violent reaction, but something far more perplexing. The slime seemed to recoil slightly from the cold metal. Then its pseudopod made contact with the duct tape holding the knife. A ripple of emerald green ran through Goopy's form. It paused, its small, cartoonish eyes, a feature Dr. Thorne still found unsettling, focusing intently on the blade. Then, with a speed that belied its gelatinous nature, Goopy began to engulf the knife. The slime flowed around the metal, its form shifting and contorting. Stabby, for his part, continued his program cleaning routine, seemingly unaware that a sentient lifeform was in the process of incorporating his primary weapon into its very being. Dr. Thorne watched in stunned silence as the green slime completely enveloped the knife, leaving only a slight bulge in its otherwise amorphous form. Goopy then pulsed a bright yellow, a color Dr. Thorne's research indicated signified confusion or perhaps indigestion. The lab door hissed open, and Ensign Ramirez rushed in, her face a mask of panic. "What happened? Is Goopy weaponized now?" Dr. Thorne could only shake his head, his scientific mind struggling to process the bizarre scene. I don't know, but I don't think Stabby will be cleaning this mess up anytime soon." Chapter 3, Stabby and the Sentient Space Slime, Part 2. The immediate aftermath of Goopy's acquisition of Stabby's knife was anticlimactic. The slime, now sporting a rather conspicuous bulge, simply pulsed a few more times, cycling through shades of yellow and a tentative orange before settling back into its usual translucent green. Stabby, seemingly unfazed by the loss of his primary offensive capability, continued his cleaning duties, diligently circling the lab and occasionally bumping into the containment field. Dr. Thorne ran a battery of scans on Goopy, his brow furrowed in concentration. The slime's internal structure, it's fascinating. It seems to have integrated the metal into its form, almost like a reinforcement. The sharp edge is still there, just coated in a layer of organic material. Ensign Ramirez peered nervously at the slime. "So, it's still dangerous?" "Potentially," Dr. Thorne conceded, though its movements seem hampered almost. It's as if the rigidity of the metal is interfering with its natural fluidity. Over the next few days, Goopy's behavior changed subtly. It was less inclined to extend pseudopods, and its color changes were less vibrant, more muted. It still responded to Mozart, but with a certain sluggishness. The bulge remained, a constant reminder of the bizarre encounter. One afternoon, while Dr. Thorne was attempting to coax Goopy into performing a series of controlled movements, a small maintenance drone malfunctioned in the corridor outside the lab. It spun wildly, its cleaning brushes scattering debris before its internal navigation system completely failed, sending it careening towards the lab door. The door, designed to withstand significant impacts, held firm. But the force of the collision sent a tremor through the lab. Goopy, startled, reacted instinctively. A sharp green appendage, now undeniably reinforced by the internalized knife, lashed out. It wasn't a deliberate attack, more like a flinch response. The reinforced pseudopod struck a delicate piece of scientific equipment, a highly sensitive spectrometer used for analyzing Goopy's bioluminescence. The machine sparked, sputtered, and went dark. Dr. Thorne stared at the ruined equipment, then at Goopy, whose form rippled with what might have been interpreted as remorse. It pulsed a pale blue, a color Thorne associated with sadness. "Well," Ensign Ramirez said slowly, breaking the silence, "I guess we know it's still got some edge." The incident with the spectrometer presented a new problem. Goopy, it turned out, was now capable of causing accidental damage on a scale previously unimaginable for a docile slime. The scientists debated what to do. Removing the knife was deemed too risky. Any attempt could harm the slime, and they had no idea how Goopy might react to invasive procedures. As they discussed potential solutions, Stabby continued his silent vigil, diligently cleaning the lab floor, seemingly oblivious to the chaos he had indirectly caused. He even rolled over a small droplet of green slime, absorbing it into his internal dust collection unit, a final, ironic act of janitorial duty in this strange saga. In the end, a compromise was reached. Goopy was moved to a larger containment chamber with reinforced walls and no sensitive equipment within reach. Its interactions with the scientists became more cautious, more observational. And Stabby? Well, Stabby continued to roam the Interstellar Janitorial Initiative's facilities, a knifeless Roomba, his legend somehow amplified by the tale of the sentient space slime, who had, quite literally, taken his weapon to heart. The scientists learned a valuable lesson that day. When dealing with unknown alien life, even the most mundane cleaning appliances could become instruments of the unexpected. Chapter 4. Galactic Customs and Interstellar Incident. The Pan-Galactic Trade Expo was the biggest event on the interstellar calendar, a sprawling marketplace of innovation, culture, and questionable alien cuisine held on the neutral space station of Xylos Prime. Humanity, eager to showcase its latest advancements in hydroponics and aggressively marketed self-folding laundry, had sent a sizable delegation, including, inadvertently, Stabby. Stabby, having somehow hitched a ride in the cargo hold of a transport ship carrying several metric tons of genetically modified potatoes, found himself amidst the chaotic energy of Xylos Prime's customs and immigration checkpoint. The scene was a vibrant tapestry of diverse alien species, the chitinous krill with their clicking mandibles, the ethereal luminians who seemed to shimmer in and out of focus, and the stoic Groknar, whose sheer bulk made navigating the crowded corridors a risky endeavor. Security at the Trade Expo was, understandably, tight. Every individual and every piece of luggage passed through advanced scanners designed to detect everything from illicit energy weapons to suspiciously pungent alien cheeses. Stabby, in his innocent pursuit of stray space dust, trundled towards one of these security checkpoints. A Krill customs agent, his multifaceted eyes scanning the queue, paused as he observed the approaching Roomba. Designation? He clicked, his translator rendering it into standard galactic basic. Ensign Williams, a young human ensign, tasked with overseeing the potato shipment and now frantically searching for a rogue cleaning unit, overheard the exchange. That's just a cleaning bot. Standard Terran model. The Krill agent's antennae twitched. A cleaning bot with a bladed appendage? By this point, Stabby had reached the scanner archway. The moment his metallic chassis crossed the threshold, alarms blared, red lights flashed, and a synthesized voice boomed. Warning! Unauthorized weapon detected! Immediate cease and desist! The entire checkpoint ground to a halt. Krill security guards, their energy weapons charging with an ominous hum, swiveled their attention toward the small, unassuming Roomba. The Luminians seemed to flicker with alarm, and even the Groknar shifted their weight, preparing for potential conflict. Ensign Williams rushed forward, his hands raised in a gesture of appeasement. Wait, it's a misunderstanding. That's just Stabby. He's not a weapon, not intentionally anyway. A heavily armored Groknar security officer lumbered closer, his voice a deep rumble. Terran, your cleaning bot is emitting weapon signatures. Explain. Well, Williams stammered, trying to come up with a plausible explanation for a knife-wielding Roomba. It's for tough stains? Very tough stains? This explanation did little to assuage the growing tension. The Krill agent pointed a clawed finger at Stabby, who was now attempting to navigate around a discarded travel brochure. The blade profile matches known Dreknar combat knives. This unit is flagged as a potential security risk. Suddenly, adding to the chaos, a small, furry creature with an improbable number of legs darted out from under a nearby luggage cart and made a beeline for Stabby. This was a flumph, a notoriously mischievous creature known for its love of shiny objects. The flumph, mistaking Stabby's metallic body for something interesting, attempted to climb onto him. Stabby, in his usual programmed response to obstruction, gave a slight jerky turn. The knife, still firmly attached, swung out, narrowly missing the flumph, but slicing through the corner of a nearby Lumian's luggage, releasing a cloud of shimmering, iridescent dust. The Lumian gasped, its form flickering violently. The Krill guards raised their weapons. The Groknar officer let out a frustrated roar. Ensign Williams buried his face in his hands. This is not going well, he muttered. The situation escalated rapidly. More security personnel converged on the scene. The flow of travelers came to a complete standstill. The legend of the dangerous Terran cleaning bot with a concealed weapon spread like wildfire through the spaceport. It took a full hour of frantic explanations, demonstrations of Stabby's limited intelligence, mostly involving him bumping into walls, and a formal apology from the Terran delegation before the Xylos Prime authorities were somewhat mollified. Stabby was eventually confiscated, deemed a potential hazard to intergalactic peace and hygiene. As Ensign Williams watched Stabby being wheeled away by two bewildered Krill security guards, he couldn't help but wonder how a simple cleaning appliance could cause so much interstellar incident. He also made a mental note to severely question the contents of any future potato shipments. Chapter 5. Stabby. Diplomatic envoy? The planet of Glorp 7 was in a state of delicate negotiation. Three major galactic powers, the avian-like Scythian Confederacy, the crystalline Zidonian Collective, and the surprisingly cuddly but fiercely territorial Floof Alliance, were locked in a tense standoff over mineral rights in a newly discovered asteroid belt. The Terran Federation, as a neutral observer with a reputation for mostly impartial trade practices, had been invited to mediate. Ambassador Evelyn Reed, the Terran representative, was a seasoned diplomat, known for her sharp intellect and even sharper negotiating skills. However, even she was unprepared for the unique diplomatic tool inadvertently brought along by a well-meaning but misguided intern. During the initial transport to Glorp 7, Ensign Peterson, eager to ensure Ambassador Reed's delegation had a clean and presentable shuttle, had included Stabby in the cleaning supplies. He had, in his youthful naivete, forgotten to mention the Roomba's modification. Imagine the scene in the Grand Hall of the Glorpian High Council. Representatives from the three galactic powers, each a study in alien grandeur, seated around an enormous, polished table. Ambassador Reed, poised and professional, was about to deliver her opening remarks when Stabby, having escaped the confines of the supply closet, trundled into the room. His entrance was, as always, understated, yet somehow deeply unsettling. The polished Glorpian floor provided an excellent surface for his cleaning endeavors, and he began his erratic dance, the knife glinting ominously in the ambient light. The Scythian delegate, a regal being with iridescent feathers, tilted his head, his large, intelligent eyes focusing on Stabby. Ambassador Reed, he chirped, his translator conveying a tone of polite bewilderment. What is the significance of this mobile cutlery unit? Ambassador Reed's carefully constructed composure wavered for a fraction of a second. Ah, that is Unit 734, a standard Terran floor maintenance device. The Zidonian representative, a towering crystal formation that communicated through resonant frequencies, emitted a low hum. Its kinetic displacement pattern is erratic, and the affixed-bladed instrument, its purpose in maintaining cleanliness, is unclear. Before Ambassador Reed could formulate a suitably diplomatic and entirely fabricated explanation, the floof representative, a large, fluffy creature with surprisingly sharp teeth, let out a series of inquisitive squeaks, its many eyes blinking in Stabby's direction. Then, the unexpected happened. As Stabby continued his cleaning circuit, he bumped gently against the Scythian delegate's ornate trailing robes. The delegate, startled, shifted slightly, inadvertently knocking over a small carafe of Glorpian ceremonial nectar. The nectar spilled across the table, heading directly towards the meticulously organized notes of the Zidonian representative. Before anyone could react, Stabby, in his tireless pursuit of spills, reached the nectar. His internal sensors registered the liquid, and he began to absorb it, his cleaning brushes working furiously. He effectively prevented the ceremonial nectar from staining the Zidonian delegate's important documents. A stunned silence filled the hall. The Scythian delegate looked at Stabby with newfound respect. The Zidonian representative's resonant hum seemed to soften. Even the floof representative let out a series of impressed squeaks. Ambassador Reed, seizing the opportunity, cleared her throat. As you can see, she said with a newfound confidence she definitely didn't feel. Unit 734 is not merely a cleaning device. It is a symbol of Terran ingenuity, our ability to adapt and overcome unforeseen spillage. She continued, improvising wildly. Its proactive approach to potential hazards demonstrates our commitment to a clean and stable galactic community. The blade is a metaphor for cutting through red tape, for decisive action in the face of adversity. The alien delegates exchanged intrigued glances. Perhaps there was more to these strange humans and their bladed cleaning bots than they had initially thought. Over the next few days, Stabby became an unlikely fixture at the Glorpian negotiations. Whenever a minor mishap occurred, a dropped datapad, a spilled beverage, Stabby was there to resolve the situation with his unique brand of chaotic efficiency. The alien delegates began to see him not as a threat, but as some kind of bizarre, silent guardian. The negotiations surprisingly progressed smoothly. Whether it was Stabby's unintentional interventions or Ambassador Reed's diplomatic skills, likely the latter, but the aliens seemed to attribute some of it to the former. A treaty was eventually signed. As the Terran delegation prepared to depart, the Scythian delegate approached Ambassador Reed. Ambassador, he chirped, we were intrigued by your Unit 734. Perhaps the Scythian Confederacy could acquire a similar model. Ambassador Reed smiled faintly. I'll see what we can arrange. Though I must warn you, his operational parameters are unconventional. And so, Stabby the Space Roomba, the accidental diplomatic envoy, returned to Earth, leaving behind a legend of a blade-wielding cleaning bot who somehow helped broker interstellar peace. Ensign Peterson, upon learning of Stabby's unexpected role, promptly requested a transfer to a deep space assignment.
Orbital Station Gamma 9 was abuzz with culinary excitement. The annual Great Galactic Bake-Off was underway, attracting the finest pastry chefs from across the known galaxy. The air was thick with the aromas of exotic spices, fermented nebulae fruits, and the faint metallic tang of overworked replicators. Among the contestants were the renowned chef Floopy Doodop from the planet Floopy Doo, famous for his 7-layered gravity-defying cakes, the stoic Glarnak of the Krill hegemony, whose chitinous creations were as intricate as they were unappetizing to most non-Krill palates, and the flamboyant Madame Evantha of the Lumina Nebula. Her bioluminescent desserts were said to taste like captured starlight. Unbeknownst to the esteemed culinary participants, a stowaway had also infiltrated the Gamma 9 kitchens, Stabby. Having once again hitched a ride, this time in a shipment of Terran yeast, the irony was lost on him. Stabby was now navigating the bustling environment, his internal programming directing him towards any and all stray crumbs. The chefs, deeply focused on their intricate creations, were largely oblivious to the small knife-wielding Roomba weaving its way through their workstations. Chef Floopy Doodop was carefully piping a delicate frosting made from pulverized moon sugar. Glarnak was meticulously assembling a structure of crystallized space kelp, and Madame Evant was gently coaxing her luminescent batter to achieve the perfect level of shimmer. Stabby, meanwhile, was having a field day. A spilled bag of Krillian space flour left a powdery trail in his wake. A dropped glob of Floopy Doodop's gravity-defying frosting was swiftly, and somewhat messily, absorbed. A stray strand of Madame Evanthi's luminescent batter acquired a faint scratch. The first sign that something was amiss came when Chef Floopy Doodop reached for a crucial ingredient, a vial of concentrated anti-gravity essence, only to find it missing. A quick search revealed the vial lying innocently on the floor, a small circular cleaning bot nudging it gently. The lid, however, was slightly ajar, and a faint whiff of anti-gravity essence hung in the air. "Blast that infernal contraption," Chef Floopy Doodop exclaimed, just as his meticulously frosted cake began to float precariously towards the ceiling. He managed to grab it just in time, his delicate frosting slightly smeared. He glared at Stabby, who continued his cleaning route, seemingly unaware of the near culinary catastrophe he had caused. Next, Glarnak discovered that several of his precisely cut pieces of space kelp had mysteriously acquired small, clean incisions. He examined the cuts with his multifaceted eyes, his mandibles clicking in confusion. An unusual preparation technique, he muttered, suspecting some form of sabotage from a rival chef. The chaos reached its peak when Madame Ivanta's bioluminescent dessert, a delicate sphere of shimmering jelly, rolled off her workstation. Before she could react, Stabby trundled over it. The knife, though not sharp enough to completely destroy the dessert, left a noticeable gash, causing the luminous filling to leak out in a less than artistic manner. Mon Dieu, Madame Evanta cried, throwing her hands up in exasperation. This barbarous machine, it has ruined my starlight soufflé. The other chefs, now realizing the source of the various mishaps, turned their attention to Stabby. Accusations flew across the kitchen. Was this some new form of culinary warfare? Had a rival chef deployed a weaponized cleaning bot to sabotage the competition? The head judge, a venerable multi-tentacled gourmandian, was alerted to the commotion. He surveyed the scene, the floating cake, the sliced kelp, the leaking soufflé, and then focused his many eyes on Stabby, who was currently attempting to navigate around a fallen whisk. What? The gourmandian rumbled, his voice echoing through the kitchen. Is the meaning of this metallic menace? Just then, Ensign Williams, still red-faced from the Xylos Prime incident and now working as a humble yeast technician to pay off his fines, recognized the culprit. Oh no, he groaned, burying his face in his hands. Not again. Ensign Williams, much to the bewilderment of the assembled chefs and the head judge, had to explain the nature of Stabby, the knife-wielding Roomba with a penchant for accidental culinary destruction. The explanation was met with a mixture of disbelief, outrage, and a surprising amount of morbid amusement. While Stabby was ultimately removed from the kitchen, much to the relief of the contestants, the incident became a legendary tale in the annals of the Great Galactic Bake-Off. The year a cleaning bot with a knife almost ruined the entire competition was a year no one would ever forget, and somewhere, in the vast expanse of space, Ensign Davies chuckled to himself, imagining the chaos Stabby had undoubtedly unleashed. Chapter 7. Stabby on R&R and the Beach Planet. After his less-than-successful stint as a diplomatic envoy and his chaotic contribution to the galactic baking scene, the Terran Federation decided that perhaps Stabby needed a break. Or, more accurately, everyone else needed a break from Stabby. A controlled deployment was arranged on the resort planet of Aquamarina 5, a world renowned for its pristine beaches and relaxing atmosphere. Aquamarina 5 was a paradise. Twin suns cast a warm glow on the turquoise oceans, gentle breezes rustled through the palm-like flora, and the sand was said to have therapeutic properties. Humans and various other species flocked to its shores to escape the stresses of interstellar travel and trade. Stabby, having been discreetly placed on the planet via an automated supply drop, began his rest and relaxation, as it was sarcastically referred to by the Federation officials who authorized it. His internal programming, however, remained stubbornly focused on cleanliness. He trundled across the soft white sand, leaving a thin, wobbly track. Small, crab-like indigenous creatures, initially curious about the metallic intruder, scuttled away hastily as they caught sight of the gleaming knife. Stabby, oblivious to their fear, diligently collected stray grains of sand and the occasional discarded fruit peel. Human tourists, lounging on their solar-powered beach chairs and sipping exotic beverages, occasionally glanced at the passing Roomba with a mixture of amusement and apprehension. Many had heard the legends of Stabby and kept a respectful distance. One tourist, a retired starship pilot named Captain Rex Nebula, no relation to Ensign Williams, thankfully, chuckled as Stabby bumped into his beach umbrella. Still causing trouble, eh, Stabby? He muttered, taking another sip of his nebula nectar. The highlight of Stabby's vacation came during the annual Aquamarina 5 sandcastle competition. Various species were hard at work, creating elaborate structures out of the local sand. There were towering krill fortresses, intricate luminous sand sculptures that shimmered in the sunlight, and surprisingly sturdy, floof sand dwellings. Stabby, drawn by the concentration of loose sand and the occasional dropped decorative seashell, began to patrol the competition area. He diligently cleaned around the bases of the sandcastles, occasionally smoothing out uneven patches of sand. The contestants, initially annoyed by the unexpected robotic interloper, soon realized that Stabby was, inadvertently, providing a valuable service. He was clearing away debris and ensuring a clean foundation for their sandy masterpieces. Some even began to strategically place small piles of loose sand near his path, knowing he would tidy them up. However, disaster struck during the final judging. Chef Floopy Doodop, still smarting from his experience at the Galactic Bake-Off, had entered the sandcastle competition, determined to prove his artistic merit in a non-culinary field. He had created an incredibly detailed replica of his famous 7-layered gravity-defying cake, meticulously crafted from different shades of sand. As the judges approached Chef Floopy Doodop's creation, Stabby, in his relentless pursuit of tidiness, mistook one of the decorative sand, frosting swirls, for a pile of loose sand. With a determined whir, He rolled over it, leaving a clean, knife-shaped furrow through the delicate design. Chef Floopy Doodop let out a bellow of outrage that echoed across the beach. That mechanical menace. It's a conspiracy. First my cake, now my sandcastle. The judges, a panel of esteemed Aquamarinian sand architects, were understandably perplexed. One, a wise old crustacean-like being, peered closely at the damage. While unconventional, he mused, the clean incision does add a certain abstract quality. Despite the judge's somewhat charitable assessment, Chef Floopy Doodop's sandcake was ultimately not victorious. Stabby, oblivious to the culinary and architectural drama he had caused, continued his cleaning duties, leaving a trail of surprisingly tidy sand in his wake. His vacation on Aquamarina 5 was not filled with the typical relaxation enjoyed by other tourists. There were no leisurely swims in the ocean, no sunbathing sessions, no exotic cocktails sipped under the shade of a palm tree, or whatever the Aquamarinian equivalent was. But Stabby, in his own unique way, had left his mark on the Paradise Planet, proving that even on vacation, a knife-wielding Roomba could still find ways to make things interesting.
Chapter 8, The Intergalactic Pet Show, judged by Stabby. The annual Intergalactic Pet Show was a highlight of the social calendar for many species across the cosmos. It was a chance to showcase the unique and often bizarre creatures that served as companions, ranging from the fluffy and adorable to the bioluminescent and slightly terrifying. This year's show, held on a neutral asteroid in the Andromeda Galaxy, was no exception, boasting a dazzling array of alien fauna. Humans, eager to participate in this celebration of interspecies companionship, had brought a variety of Earth pets, including a particularly well-groomed Persian cat named Mr. Fluffington III, and a remarkably intelligent, for a hamster, rodent named Nibbles. Unbeknownst to the Terran delegation, they had also inadvertently brought Stabby. Having stowed away in Mr. Fluffington's elaborate carrying case, attracted by a stray cat treat, Stabby found himself in the bustling exhibition hall. The sights and smells were unlike anything his internal senses had ever encountered. Furry creatures with multiple eyes blinked at him, shimmering energy beings hummed with an otherworldly glow, and gelatinous blobs with surprising intelligence oozed around their enclosures. The judging was a serious affair, with panels of experts from various species evaluating the pets based on criteria such as grooming, temperament, and the ability to perform amusing tricks, or, in the case of some species, impressive displays of controlled bioluminescence. During the small and unusual pets category, disaster, or perhaps comedic gold, struck. Nibbles, the aforementioned intelligent hamster, was nervously performing a complex series of acrobatic maneuvers on his miniature obstacle course. The judges, a stern-looking krill breeder and a floaty telepathic lumina, were observing intently. Stabby, in his tireless pursuit of dropped hamster bedding, had somehow managed to navigate under the judging table. Then, in a moment of unfortunate trajectory, he rolled upwards, his low profile allowing him to slip unnoticed onto the table's surface. He emerged directly in front of the judges, his knife pointing ominously towards a particularly nervous Nibbles, who promptly froze mid-somersault. The krill judge clicked in alarm, and the Lumina judge emitted a mental wave of pure surprise. The human handler, a young woman named Emily, gasped in horror as she saw the knife-wielding Roomba on the judging table. "Oh no, not Stabby," she whispered frantically. Before Emily could intervene, Stabby, his cleaning cycle still engaged, began to slowly rotate. His knife traced an arc in the air, passing perilously close to Nibbles, who squeaked and flattened himself against the obstacle course. The krill judge, interpreting Stabby's movement as a threat display, reached for the emergency containment button. The Lumina judge, sensing Nibbles' distress, projected a mental image of a giant sunflower seed in an attempt to distract Stabby. The chaos escalated when Mr. Fluffington III, startled by the commotion, let out a series of indignant meows from his nearby enclosure. A small, energetic Grocknar puppy in the large and boisterous pets category, mistaking the meows for a challenge, began to bark with surprising volume. Amidst the pandemonium, Stabby completed his rotation and continued his cleaning path across the judging table, leaving a faint scratch on the polished surface. He then trundled off the other side, seemingly unaware of the interspecies panic he had just induced. The judges, after a moment of stunned silence, looked at each other, their expressions a mixture of bewilderment and something akin to respect. At least that's what Emily hoped. The krill judge clicked thoughtfully. The unexpected element, the raw intensity. The Lumina judge projected a mental note, unconventional but undeniably attention-grabbing. To everyone's surprise, Nibbles, perhaps inspired by Stabby's dramatic entrance, or simply terrified into stillness, was awarded second place in the small and unusual pets category. The judges cited his ability to maintain composure under extreme pressure as a key factor. Stabby, meanwhile, continued his exploration of the pet show, occasionally bumping into enclosures and sending various alien creatures into states of mild alarm. Emily, after managing to retrieve him, could only shake her head. How he managed to cause so much disruption without even trying remained a baffling mystery. The intergalactic pet show of that year would forever be remembered for the unexpected appearance of a knife-wielding cleaning bot who somehow managed to influence the judging, all while simply trying to tidy up. Chapter 9. Stabby and the Zero-Gravity Janitorial Mishap. The orbital scrubber, a state-of-the-art, at least according to its overly enthusiastic marketing materials, zero-gravity cleaning vessel was experiencing a minor crisis. A sudden depressurization in Sector Gamma had sent cleaning supplies floating every which way, turning the normally orderly corridors into a chaotic ballet of sponges, space brooms, and runaway disinfectant sprays. Astronaut Janice O'Malley, the orbital scrubber's sole crew member, floated amidst the swirling debris, attempting to regain control of the situation. Zero-gravity cleaning was a delicate art, requiring precise movements and a firm grip on one's tools. Janice, despite her extensive training, was finding it difficult to wrangle a particularly slippery microfiber cloth that seemed determined to explore the far reaches of the vessel. Adding to the challenge was Stabby. How he had ended up aboard the orbital scrubber was a mystery even to him, if he were capable of pondering such things. The most likely scenario involved another instance of accidental stowaway during a resupply transfer. Now, in the weightless environment, Stabby was experiencing a whole new dimension of cleaning. Without the friction of gravity, Stabby no longer trundled along surfaces. Instead, he drifted and spun, his internal cleaning brushes whirring uselessly in the empty air. His knife, however, remained a constant, and in the confined corridors, it posed a new three-dimensional hazard. Janice yelped as Stabby, propelled by a stray burst of air from a ventilation shaft, bumped into her, his knife narrowly missing her pressurized suit. "Stabby, what are you even doing here?" she exclaimed into her helmet comm, knowing full well that the Roomba couldn't answer. The corridor became a bizarre obstacle course. Janice would reach for a floating bottle of all-purpose cleaner, only to have Stabby drift by and knock it further away. She would attempt to grab a runaway sponge, but a passing space duster, set in motion by Stabby's gentle collision, would send it spinning off in another direction. At one point, a large, industrial-strength space mop floated directly into Stabby's path. The Roomba, with a gentle nudge, sent the mop rotating end over end, its tangled fibers flailing like a bizarre space kraken. Janice, caught in the mop's trajectory, found herself being slowly spun around, her attempts to grab onto a handrail proving futile. "This is ridiculous," she muttered, her voice slightly muffled by the spinning mop. "I'm being attacked by my own cleaning supplies, and a Roomba with a knife." The situation took a turn for the even more absurd when Stabby, drifting through the air, collided with a large, sealed container of concentrated cleaning solution. The impact wasn't hard, but it was enough to dislodge the container from its magnetic mooring. The container began to drift slowly down the corridor, a potentially hazardous projectile in the confined space. Janice, finally free from the rogue mop, spotted the drifting container. "Oh no, you don't," she said, propelling herself towards it. Just as she was about to grab it, Stabby, still spinning gently, drifted into her path. She dodged him, but the sudden maneuver caused her to miss the container, which continued its inexorable journey towards the sector's main control panel. Janice watched in horror as the container bumped against the control panel, hitting the emergency vent release. With a hiss, the remaining atmosphere in Sector Gamma began to vent into space, carrying with it the remaining cleaning supplies and, unfortunately, Stabby. Janice managed to grab onto a secure handrail just as the last of the air rushed out. She watched through the reinforced viewport as a cloud of cleaning fluids, sponges, and a spinning Roomba drifted away into the blackness of space. After repressurizing the sector and filing a truly bizarre incident report, Janice could only shake her head. She had faced micrometeoroid showers, navigated asteroid fields, and even dealt with a minor alien infestation once. But nothing in her training had prepared her for the challenges of zero-gravity janitorial work, compounded by the accidental presence of a knife-wielding Roomba. As for Stabby, his brief but eventful tour of duty aboard the orbital scrubber added another improbable chapter to his ever-growing legend. Somewhere out there, drifting amongst the cosmos, a small metallic Roomba with a knife was undoubtedly still cleaning something.
Chapter 10. The Legend of Stabby. An Alien Historian's Perspective. From the dusty archives of the Great Galactic Library on the neutral planet of Cognito Prime, a young Xylarian historian named Professor Floopy Bleep was meticulously researching a particularly perplexing phenomenon. The enduring legend of Stabby the Space Roomba. Professor Floopy Bleep, whose 7 eyes were usually focused on ancient star charts and the socio-political dynamics of long-extinct civilizations, had become fascinated by this seemingly insignificant Terran cleaning unit that had somehow woven itself into the fabric of intergalactic folklore. His research had taken him down numerous rabbit holes, from fragmented forum posts on early Terran internet archives to surprisingly detailed and often contradictory accounts in various alien historical databases. The challenge lay in separating fact from outlandish fiction, the kernel of truth from the layers of myth and exaggeration
that had accumulated over the Terran centuries. He had uncovered tales of Stabby initiating accidental mutinies, becoming an unlikely diplomatic envoy, disrupting galactic bake-offs, and even, according to one particularly colorful Krill epic poem, battling a giant space slug using only his trusty blade and an uncanny ability to navigate cluttered corridors. The Terrans, Professor Floopy Bleep murmured to his holographic research assistant, a shimmering entity named Data Sprite, possess a peculiar sense of humor. Their legends often intertwine the mundane with the absurd, the accidental with the heroic. Data Sprite flickered in agreement. The Stabby narratives seem to embody this, Professor. A simple cleaning automaton, modified with a crude weapon, becoming a recurring figure in seemingly unrelated interstellar events. Professor Floopy Bleep projected a series of holographic images, a grainy depiction of a Roomba with a knife duct taped to it, a stylized illustration of Stabby addressing a council of bewildered aliens, and a comical animation of a Roomba chasing a giant space crumb through a zero-gravity environment. The variations are remarkable, the professor observed. In some accounts, Stabby is portrayed as a sentient agent of chaos, deliberately causing mayhem. In others, he is an unwitting participant, his actions merely misinterpreted by the various species he encounters. He accessed a data tablet containing excerpts from Terran social media. The humans are space orcs subthreads are particularly illuminating, he noted, his eye stalks twitching slightly as he scrolled through fan-created stories and artwork. They seem to embrace the inherent absurdity of Stabby, celebrating his illogical nature and the reactions he elicits from other species. Professor Floopy Bleep also examined the Space Australia memes, where Stabby was often depicted with additional, equally impractical modifications, such as tiny boomerangs or a miniature flamethrower. The Terran tendency towards escalating the ridiculous is evident here, he commented. After years of painstaking research, Professor Floopy Bleep began to formulate a hypothesis. The legend of Stabby, he theorized, was not about the cleaning bot itself, but about what it represented. It was a reflection of humanity's own chaotic nature, their tendency to do things simply because they find them amusing, and the often unintended consequences of those actions on the wider galactic stage. Stabby was a blank slate onto which various species projected their own interpretations of humanity. Their unpredictable behavior, their strange fascination with everyday objects, and their occasional obliviousness to the chaos they inadvertently create. The enduring popularity of Stabby, Professor Floopy Bleep concluded in his seminal academic paper, serves as a testament to the power of the unexpected. A simple cleaning device, augmented by a seemingly random act of human whimsy, has become a symbol of the unpredictable and often hilarious interactions between species in the vast tapestry of the galaxy. As he finished his research, Professor Floopy Bleep couldn't help but feel a certain fondness for the little knife-wielding Roomba. He knew that somewhere out there, in the vast expanse of the cosmos, Stabby was likely still rolling along, leaving a trail of minor chaos and bewildered onlookers in his wake, his legend continuing to grow with each improbable encounter. And in the grand library of Cognito Prime, the tale of Stabby the Space Roomba would forever be catalogued under unexplained phenomena and Terran eccentricities.